I made a New Year's resolution to play more newer cozy games this year. So in January, I picked up 5 freshly fully released games on the PC. From magical floating islands to the chocolate factory, I want to share with you which ones I really liked and why, and which ones I feel need a little bit more time in the oven. As my first game of 2025, I played Skystead Ranch. It was released on January 17th, but the kind developer sent me an early access Steam key so I could play it in about 2 weeks before the release date. In Skystead Ranch, you play as a brightly colored character on a floating island. Your main goal is to restore the island, and while doing that, you'll come across these adorable grey creatures called skylets. Each skylet has its own needs and personality, and they'll only choose to stay on your island if you meet their unique requirements. It's a mix of farming, resource gathering, and crafting. You plant crops, gather materials, and slowly build up your island to attract more skylets. You have the opportunity to visit the store from some upgrades, and in time you can open new parts of the island as well to expand your little ranch. This game immediately reminded me of Viva Piñata, which I loved when I was younger. My sister and I still imitate the sounds the piñatas made. It really has made an impression on me. The idea of animals transforming as they settle in gives a nice sense of accomplishment in both games. That being said, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't a unique animation for when the skylets regain their color. It just kind of happens, and if you're not looking in the right direction, you might miss it entirely. I really enjoyed the voice acting of the magical guidebook. It added a bit of humor and fun to the tutorial and the overall experience. I like that, as in Viva Piñata, even the skylets are doing these repeated sounds saying their names when you get close to them. It's really cute. Now, onto the less cozy side of things. The camera is very clunky and feels like it's not made to be played on the PC. When it was released, you had to hold the right mouse button to look around. That gave me a little bit of a cramp. But they have fixed it now with the latest update, and now we finally have free look. Still, when changing the terrain, the right mouse button comes into play again. But I like that the developers have listened to the players and are trying to improve. Unfortunately, the game also has a lot of bugs, and I ran into frequent crashes during my playthrough. While I don't mind a few hiccups here and there, the crashes eventually made the game almost unplayable for me, which was a real shame. And while the game has a lot of potential, it doesn't feel like a fully finished product. It's more like something you'd expect from an early access release, which wouldn't be a big deal if it weren't for the $25 price tag. For that price, I'd expect a more polished experience. Overall, Skystead Ranch has a lot of potential, and I love the idea of creating this colorful, cozy island full of cute creatures. But for now, I'll be putting it on hold to see what improvements the developers make. If they fix the bugs and add some polish, this could easily become a go-to cozy game for me. After spending some time in the skies with Skystead Ranch, I was ready for something a little more grounded, and that's when I discovered Reviver, which was released on Steam on the 9th of January. Reviver is this beautifully hand-drawn, point-and-click puzzle game with a strong focus on storytelling. In this game, you follow the lives of 2 characters exploring how small decisions can shape their fates. Throughout the game, you uncover their intertwined stories and figure out how to guide them through life's challenges. The cutscenes between the playable characters are presented through comic-style panels, which I found to be such a unique and engaging way to progress the narrative. It feels like reading a graphic novel while also being part of the story. The gameplay revolves around exploring the character's room through different years, which change as the timeline shifts. Your task is to piece together their personalities, emotions, and life events based on the items and details in their rooms. It's a really cool mechanic that gets you thinking about their stories in a way that feels personal and interactive to you as well. Every time I unlocked a new year and saw how the rooms had changed, whether it was neat and organized or you could already see that something bad has happened, I felt genuinely worried. It's not often a game makes me this invested in its characters that I don't even see, but Reviver managed. Each messy detail or a received letter was a clue to this story, and I kept finding myself constantly asking, what happened here and how can I fix it? The puzzles were really fun too. Some of them were fairly easy, but others, let's just say I had to step away and come back with a fresh brain more than once. The good thing is, if you ever get completely stuck, there is a skip button, which is a lifesaver when all you want to do is get back to the story. Even though the story is linear, the way it plays out is very interactive and engaging. You're not making choices that change the outcome, but instead you're uncovering the story piece by piece. This is such a unique and special puzzle game. The storytelling and clever mechanics really sets it apart from other similar games. And the different kinds of puzzles that I had to solve kept me on my toes. Usually in these types of games, I tend to get a bit bored with the same puzzles over and over, but not here. I definitely recommend Reviver for a cozy afternoon. Next up, I played Chocolate Factory Simulator, which was released on January 7th on Steam. Now, I love simulation games, especially ones with unique themes. And who doesn't love chocolate? So naturally, this game caught my eye. In Chocolate Factory Simulator, you manage your very own chocolate production line. You take orders, measure ingredients, boil chocolate, and shape it into different treats. All that to build your chocolate empire with your little robot helper in a steampunk world. The game focuses on realism, both in its art style and also gameplay. At first, I was super into it. The whole process of measuring ingredients and following the recipes made me feel like a chocolatier in training. But after about 5 orders, the excitement started to wear off. Here's the thing. When I made even a small mistake, like adding too much sugar, I had to throw the entire batch away and start completely over. And don't get me wrong, this was totally on me and my impatience, but it made the game feel a little frustrating after a while. It's definitely a game that rewards precision and patience, which I can fully respect, but it just wasn't the right fit for me. One thing I really liked though was the robot assistant. He's not just there for decoration. You can buy parts and upgrade him so he eventually helps you out. I thought that was a really cool touch and something to look forward to as you progress. Because in the beginning he's just running around and making the factory look busy, which I guess is good for business. But there were moments that felt a little too slow-paced for me. For example, when I was waiting for chocolate to boil or cool down, there wasn't much else to do. I just sit there, literally watching the boiling pot. I kept wishing I could take multiple orders at once or prep for the next batch while waiting. Maybe that's something you can unlock later in the game, but unfortunately I didn't get that far. On the bright side, I love that you can customize how your factory looks. It's a fun way to make the space feel like your own, and for someone who loves a bit of decorating in games, this is a definite plus. You can also design the wrapping paper for your chocolate and even choose how the chocolate itself looks like. I think this adds to the feeling of really creating your own franchise. Another thing that I count as a negative is that the world felt very empty. You're up in your tower/factory and there's not much going on. I understand that it would be a huge leap, but I really wish there was somewhere else I could go. like a shop I can teleport to, where I can buy the ingredients in bulk or something like that. Just to have a little bit of an interaction with someone else than the phone and the robot. So all in all, Chocolate Factory Simulator didn't quite click for me, but maybe that's more about my playstyle rather than the game itself. If you have a lot of patience and love the idea of running your own chocolate factory, why not check it out? After my time as a chocolatier, I was ready for something a little less sugary. So I decided to venture into the mysterious world of Into the Emberlands, released on the 20th of January on Steam. Set in a mysterious post-apocalyptic world, you play as a lone traveler trying to rebuild a community while uncovering the secrets of the Emberlands. This is a survival game with a twist. You can only safely move around in your little village that you grow with completing missions. The moment you step outside of those village boundaries, you need to count your steps, because your torch will run out and then you will be lost in the wilderness. This game had a bit of a slow start, but I actually really liked that. It gave me the time to settle into the world and figure out how everything worked without feeling overwhelmed. Finding the first villager that I had to rescue from the wilderness was nicely laid out for me, so I didn't feel any stress, but still figured out in which direction this game is going. Now, Into the Emberlands has kind of a permadeath mechanic, but on the easier setting. When you die, you lose almost everything. Your upgrades, your items, even the villagers you've rescued. It's a lot like Don't Starve in that way, where every decision feels weighty because there's no going back. But here's where I got a little bit confused. Sometimes after dying, I'd start over with more embers, which is the game's currency, and other times I'd have less. Sometimes I'd still have a key in my inventory that I found, and other times it was gone. That uncertainty added a bit of frustration because I never quite knew what I'd keep or lose. It made each run feel unpredictable, which is both actually exciting and a little nerve-wracking. But despite that, I found myself really drawn into the gameplay loop. I have always enjoyed games where you have to strategize your next move. Like, should I head for that axe to chop down trees? Or should I rescue that villager first? Or maybe I should even play it safe and head home before I run out of my embers. It's a constant balancing act, and I loved how it never rushed me. I could go back to the village as many times as I wanted to regain all of my needed embers. Unlike some other survival games, there's no timer breathing down your neck, so you can take all the time you need to think things through. For me, that made it feel surprisingly cozy. Now you're probably thinking, permadeath and survival mechanics don't exactly scream cozy. And you're right, this game is kind of 50-50 on whether it fits the cozy genre. But for me, it worked. The lack of enemies, aside from the occasional misstep, and the relaxed pacing made it feel more like a strategic puzzle than a high-stakes survival game. Plus, the art style is very warm and cute. I really like this game. I feel it can be improved on, of course, by maybe making the village more interactive, but overall it has a nice combination of strategy, survival, and cozy vibes. It's not for everyone, especially if you're not a fan of starting over from scratch. But if you enjoy games that make you think and reward careful planning, this one might just be worth a try. For my final game of January, I felt something more witchy was needed, so I decided to play Mika and the Witch's Mountain. Fully released on Steam on the 22nd of January, this is a super charming game that feels like a cozy cross between a short hike and Kiki's delivery service. You play as Mika, a young witch who shows up on an island, announces she's a witch, and somehow lands a job delivering packages immediately. The main gameplay is all about the delivering service, which sounds simple, but there's this fun challenge to finding the best route through the island's hazards. You cannot get the packages wet or damage them, so staying out of the sea and not speeding into rocks is a good tip for those starting out. It's an incredibly cute game, but there's something about it that feels like it could have been from the PS2 era. In a way, it also gave me the Wii Super Mario Galaxy vibes for some reason, but I haven't yet figured out that reason. Flying around on Mika's broomstick is a big part of the gameplay, and while it's fun, the controls can be a little bit finicky at times. It's not the most intuitive flying mechanic, and I did struggle a bit with precision, especially during timed deliveries. But that might just be a me issue. I've never been great with timed quests, and to be honest, they do stress me out a little bit. The whole game is essentially one big fetch quest, but it's done in a way that feels lighthearted and fun. You're flying around, picking up packages and delivering them to townsfolk across the island. Some of the deliveries are straightforward, while others require a bit of problem solving or exploration. I really enjoyed the small progression of upgrading your broomstick, which opens up new areas and makes flying a bit easier. It's not the most groundbreaking gameplay, but it really does its job of being cozy. One more thing I appreciated was the humor in the dialogue. There were some genuinely funny moments that made me smile, and the characters felt full of personality. That said, I did feel like there was a bit of too much talking at times. Some conversations felt a little bit stereotypical, and I often found myself predicting what the characters were going to say before they said it. It didn't ruin the experience for me, but it did make me wish the writing had a bit more depth. The game took me about 8 hours to finish, so it's not the longest experience, but it is perfect for a cozy weekend playthrough. It's easygoing, it's low stakes, and it's just the right amount of challenging. And that's it for the games that I played in January. There was a lot that I liked, but there were also some disappointments as well. So I think for my New Year's resolution, I will mend the rules a little bit and say that I will play something new if it truly interests me, or if something is recommended to me. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video and you wish to have some more content. Until next time, take care, happy cozy gaming.